What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Last week on Friday, to close out the week, there were a ton of Metroid Prime 4 previews that went live, and reactions were going crazy online, really just around one major aspect that was shown off and has people wondering if it's going to ruin the entire game, but we'll go over all of that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Valve, how they are responding even to some of the concerns around hardware and some of the choices in the Steam machine, and well, them explaining exactly why they went that route. And we'll also be talking about, once again, AI as it's back in all the different headlines because we have other companies now doubling and tripling down on it, and yeah, it basically means we're going to be hearing a lot about artificial intelligence going forward in all these different titles. All of that and more. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Small Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. We're here every weekday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time, going over the world in gaming. Try to keep you up to date. So even if you don't get a notification in the morning, just know there's probably a video here for you right away. But we're actually going to start today with Ubisoft, because while they halted their trading to close out last week, there has been a ton of speculation, and they had an internal memo that was like, hey, this is going to cause a lot of speculation, and it has, to the point now where rumors are spreading all over the place, like social media, Reddit, etc., that Ubisoft is being bought. And here's the thing, most people don't know about that because it's the whole situation around insider trading and stuff. I think there can be a lot of assumptions made that, yes, something substantial is happening with Ubisoft, and I figure we're going to hear about it probably this week. It could be, like, they could be getting bought out completely, sure. They could be getting acquired, or they legitimately need more time to get all their finances and stuff set up in their reports, and they were running behind. There's a lot of potential things that could be happening here, but no, there's no solid evidence that they have been purchased yet. Just a whole lot of speculation and rumors right now running around. Also, we did have Call of Duty Black Ops 7 go live last week, and the reviews are, well, I mean, you can see them here. It's actually coming in at an 83 on PC. There haven't been that many reviews so far on this game, which is interesting because the campaign is less than 5 hours long. I mean, I was playing some of it, the missions, and it wasn't great. I mean, it is kind of imaginative with some of the stuff they're doing, but it's not really, it doesn't feel like Call of Duty. It once again feels like them getting out there with some of the supernatural, psychedelic stuff. And, well, user scores have kind of responded. And look, I'm not one to really buy in too much to user reviews on places like Metacritic, because people can just roll in, drop a 0, type a sentence, and then keep moving. But it is interesting, kind of the position of Call of Duty right now versus where Battlefield has gone. It's like two polar opposites and heading in different directions completely. So Battlefield seems to be on the upswing. Call of Duty seems to be just kind of in no man's land right now. Some were mentioning that Steam, it didn't seem like there were that many people online versus what you'd expect for a big Call of Duty launch. But the Steam numbers can be kind of misleading at times. I will say that with concurrent player count. And a lot of this, I think, is going to come down to more the console side than anything else with a Call of Duty game like Black Ops 7. So we'll find out more, I'm sure, when we get the Circana stuff, and they most likely tell us that Call of Duty, once again, is like the best-selling game in the US for not only most likely November, but probably just like the holiday season and then most of 2025. Oh, and good news for Analogue 3D pre-order customers. As we can see on their website, it's been updated. It ships November 18th. That's right. This week, those Analogue 3Ds will start to ship out. And again, great news, because there's been so much uncertainty around this system. We don't have footage of it actually working. So we'll see, I guess, when people start getting them this week, next week, maybe to start off December. It's weird because it ships November 18th, but like in the US and stuff, we'll have Thanksgiving coming up. So that, of course, makes things fluctuate a bit when it comes to the mail service and shipping things around. So here's hoping people can maybe get them even before Thanksgiving. But otherwise, at least people are getting them, it seems anyway, according to the website, before the end of the year. So I guess keep an eye out for any kind of tracking information in your emails. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Metroid Prime 4, as previews did go live on Friday. We also had a pretty big overview trailer from Nintendo. It wasn't quite Nintendo Direct length, but I think we basically just saw the Nintendo Direct broken up into different previews from outlets, and then that 7 or 8 minute overview trailer from Nintendo. Now, I will say some of these previews were quite scathing around one aspect. That's a certain character, Miles McKenzie, who we'll come back to here in a second. But like one example you can see, this was VGC. And there's red. So far, Metroid Prime 4 doesn't feel much like Metroid at all. And I'm worried. So they say this hands-on demo left them cold, and there were many other outlets that echoed the same sentiment, but I will say most of the time they were quite happy with what they were playing. There's extended footage. VGC put out about 20 minutes or so, and I would say a good chunk of that looked like Metroid Prime until, yeah, Miles McKenzie comes in. This has been like the most controversial NPC I've seen, like video game character, in a long time, and that's because they're very talkative and they're bumbling all over the place, and it does feel strange in a Metroid Prime game, mostly because Metroid Prime is about the atmosphere. It's about feeling very isolated and alone, and really just kind of walking around, hearing the environment around you with some, orchestral music coming in and stuff. All that is still there, and it was shown in some of these gameplay snippets, but then you have the abrasiveness of Miles McKenzie showing up, and of course the MCU quips, all of that being included. A lot of concerns around this that I've seen online. Now, there are some things to keep in mind, okay, as I see people like jumping off the deep end for this one. This is like an hour or so of the game that was shown, and while Nintendo made a choice showing this hour, it does make me wonder if Nintendo went, okay, Miles is the tutorial companion that you find in the beginning. Let's let the previewers go through some of this stuff with Miles so that he can acclimate them to the game. So we don't have any weird things happening in preview events where they don't know where to go, or I'm sure there is that thought process as well, even though these are people who are in the industry and should know how to play these games. I'm sure they also go, oh, that Cuphead video. No, but there is at least that thought of let's handhold them through it as much as we can so that they can see as much as possible in that limited time window that they have when they're previewing the game. So here's where I am with this. Metroid Prime 4. It's been about 8 years since the game was shown. I'm buying it either way. I have to experience it now for myself. It really has been that sort of a game. Really a build-up for a game. So either way, picking it up, Switch 2, and that is the nice thing. When I did see it in action, playing as a Metroid Prime game, it looked awesome, right? Like the visuals look great, 4K 60. I think a lot of the environments and things that were shown look interesting and diverse. I think a lot of the psychic powers look great. The combat looks good. Samus looks awesome in her suit and everything. It all comes together nicely there. The companions right now are the big question mark and what really has people uneasy going into its release. But here's the thing. That's an hour or so a game. The game. We'll see when it comes out, as we'll get full reviews, of course. And then, I'll be playing through it. I'm sure many other people will too. And we'll see how much of that game Miles McKenzie is in it, and if maybe these other companions can offer different wrinkles that are more positive to the game. That's the big part right now, is Miles didn't exactly give the best first impression for the companions, but I think there's a lot of really cool story that can be told through them if done correctly, and not like they're out of the comedy section of the MCU. So we'll see as we get closer to release. That's December 4th, so close. And I think we'll probably see review codes go out either by the end of this week or to start next week. Because again, they probably want to get them out before Thanksgiving hits. And a lot of people in the office are taking, like time off or vacation and stuff for the holiday season. Since once we get back, that following week, hey, Metroid Prime 4 week, it's ready to roll. So we'll see with the reviews, but either way, I'm kind of already bought in, and based on the poll results that we'll go over later, I think many of you are as well. Next up, let's talk about the Steam machine, and with Valve making the rounds in a lot of interviews, we are getting bits and pieces of information here, and one in particular had to do with the decisions that they were making around the hardware in the Steam machine, and that has proven to be a topic of debate right now around the VRAM in this device, and if it's going to be enough, and if this system, depending on where it's priced, is going to be worth picking up with the current specifications that have been shown. Well, like we can see this, for example, this was a conversation that was being had over on Adam Savage's Tested, and it's a video where they are talking about the Steam Controller 2 and the Steam machine with Valve engineers, and one quote in particular, they said, the Steam machine is equal or better than 70% of what people have at home. And I think this is very important to note because I see the sentiment going around a lot online currently from people who are looking at this machine as not good enough. And I think there's this expectation that if you have a video card that is top of the line everyone else also has a video card that's top of the line. Now, another thing that was mentioned from some of these Valve engineers that have been in interviews, they say that, I mean, they've been looking around and they've kind of gotten a lot of feedback based on where people are on average with their hardware. And it's no secret. I mean, this gets shared, for example, here with the October 2025 hardware and software survey. Take a look at some of the specs that are shown as kind of the leading candidates here for a system. I mean, system RAM at 16 gigabytes, that matches the Steam machine. You know, the physical CPUs, 6 CPUs, that matches the Steam machine. You can say the RTX 3060, right around the 7600. Okay, I mean, that's within range, we'll say. But you look at VRAM, 8 gigabytes. I mean, that is, again, the common 33.46% of people who opted in and took the survey say they have 8 gigabytes of VRAM, and some even have less than that. That's the funny part. It's not all just, oh, it's 8 gigabytes, that's where it starts. No, there are people who have less than 8 gigabytes of VRAM. Even the primary resolution that people use for their display, 1080p. So that is to me, that's the big thing here, okay? There is this thought process that everyone has the 5090 or the 5080 or like the top of the line AMD card. And that's just not really, well, not the reality anyway. Carrie, I will say this is interesting to keep an eye on because I think he's putting together a video here. He went ahead and put together a Steam machine-like, okay, computer. And that's the thing that's interesting to watch here is see how this measures up to some of the other devices. Mostly he's putting it next to the Steam Deck because they do have a claim, that being Valve, it being 6 times as powerful. And really, as you go up in resolution, it starts to show through more and more. But something to keep an eye on here, as that is as close as, it's going to be very difficult to get exactly because it is semi-custom. That is very close to some of the specifications that he's showing off. And he showed a pretty good performance and things like Returnal, even using, of course, upscaling techniques to get to 4K 60 on God of War. So it is all possible, but there are going to be concessions made. And as Valve has mentioned, a lot of it comes down to the price. That's something we still need. And that, I think, will be the big tell. All right, were they able to get it to within, I'd say, a certain threshold price where people look at the specs and go, okay, that's not bad? Or will it be something of, oh, wow, that's not a great price for those specs? That's kind of where we are now. Hopefully, I'd say like January, they're ready to talk about price and open pre-orders, because I think if they get that price right, it's going to be something that's going to be very, very difficult to get, clearly through just Steam, but outright probably when they launch it and then going forward for quite some time. Next up, let's talk about AI, and specifically generative AI, as it's coming up more and more in the gaming space, specifically around games that are being developed. And Arc Raiders is one that's been in the headlines recently because the studio used generative AI with different voice actors and stuff and their voices to create lines for the game, and Eurogamer dinged them several points to where it came in with a pretty low review score, despite the review itself when talking about the game being fairly positive, but that generative AI just knocked down the scoring system. Really, to me, just shows how bad the scoring system is outright and how just inefficient it is to describe if the game is good or not, right? Well, now we have some other companies that are chiming in about how much they're buying in on AI right now. One we can see is Krafton. This was actually posted up. This is over on Pocket Gamer, saying PUBG developer Krafton has started offering voluntary resignations to employees, including junior staff with 5 years or less of service, as reported by Business Korea, following a major $69 million investment in becoming, get this, an AI-first company. The developer is effectively looking to cut domestic human roles. So the idea here being, hey, if you just want to take a severance package, I mean, some of these were, hey, up to 3 years of salary almost, depending on how long you've been there. And to them, wow, we're going to end up saving in the long run if we do this now and get most of the human developers out of here and focus in on AI. And so Krafton, I think the big story around this is keeping an eye on them to see how things go for them as they work into being an AI-first company. We really have to keep tabs on, I think anyway, some of these companies as almost proof of concept, because if it works well for them, I mean, based just in a capitalistic sort of environment, what do you think the other companies are going to attempt to do? Probably follow suit and make a bunch of money. At least that's, I'm sure, the vision and the hope that they have on their big projected balance sheet there. But there is another company that talked about AI, and they were in the news recently. because of that Horizon game that's coming out on mobile and on PC through that purple platform. This with NCSoft, and we can see this is over on Insider Gaming, and they are citing a new interview with Rulyweb, and that was translated by a user on Reset Era, saying the report added that AI is helping in various aspects of the game, such as determining the optimal number of players for gameplay rather than playing with a large number of users. Moreover, internally, NCSoft is also using AI assistance for production, from coding to art. They added that the AI is being substantially implemented in actual development, and they will reveal the technologies that are being used one by one at a later date. Lastly, the devs revealed that the Horizon Steel Frontiers team is the one that wants to utilize AI the most. NCSoft is using the tech extensively and has stated that we should be able to observe a significant increase in AI use in games after they release Aeon 2. So there you have it. I'm telling you guys, you're going to hear more and more about AI, generative AI in games, whether it's through art or development or even just voiceover, NPC behavior. It's going to be all over the place, and just more and more as we go along. If, for example, some of these studios prove that it works, it's going to be a cascading effect, I think. And I've seen a lot of absolute takes like a year ago even, where, hey, if AI is used in the game, I'm not going to play it. I think it's going to be very difficult to keep that same stance, because there are going to be games where they just don't tell you they use AI, and you'll find out 2 or 3 years later when there's some kind of documentary or report out of, say, Bloomberg, and they used a lot of generative AI for textures or for voices or whatever, really, even just outright parts of developing the game. So just keep that in mind. It's going to be something that's going to come up a lot as we go along, and I'm curious how many companies really try to test the boundaries and replace like significant portions of their development workforce. And in our last bit of news, we're coming back to Ubisoft for this one. And look, it's something people had suspected for a while, and it's something that I thought about. I said, if Ubisoft really did that, like make a Splinter Cell game and then, turn it into a live service game that then got shut down anyway, man, that would be a real Ubisoft thing to do. Well, get ready for this one. Let's take a look. This is over on Bloomberg from Jason Schreier, saying in early 2017, by the way, this was talking about the developers behind Dispatch. Great game, by the way. Played all the way through the episodes. Loved it. Fully recommend it. Great game. In early 2017, they left Telltale to take jobs at the San Francisco office of the French video game giant Ubisoft, where they were tapped to work on a new project that until now has remained a secret. Herman and his team were developing a new entry in the beloved stealth action Splinter Cell franchise, he told me. I was so excited to be part of this and help revitalize it, because it's been dormant for a while, and we thought we could tell a great story and do something the fans would love. They worked on the project for a few months before they got disrupted by executive whims. Ubisoft was at the time growing obsessed with games as a service, or games that can be monetized for months or years after they are released, and the company began pressuring all of its projects to follow that route. Guess what game this turned into? Go ahead. Yes. The project evolved several times and would eventually morph into XDefiant. Are you kidding me? An ill-fated shooter that was shut down a year after it came out. Now look, they're making a Splinter Cell remake. We think they're still making a Splinter Cell remake. Ubisoft, who knows what's going on over there. That and like the Black Flag remake and Prince of Persia Sands Time remake. But like, they had a new Splinter Cell development, and it turns into XDefiant because they got so enamored with the live service, which, by the way, that's everything we've been talking about that we're concerned with. Oh, wow. Them really focusing on live service because they see Fortnite. What will that end up doing to projects they have development, maybe for an IP that we were hoping to get a new entry in? Oh, yeah, Splinter Cell turned into XDefiant. That is no longer in existence, but at least if Splinter Cell had come out and it sold terribly, we would still have Splinter Cell, provided it didn't need that always online connection, but like an actual Splinter Cell. Even just single player campaign and the multiplayer got shut down, we'd still have that single player campaign. XDefiant is just gone now. And there was actually some pushback on this from, I believe, the XDefiant director, but Jay Schreier pointed out this is a story from 2017. He didn't come aboard for XDefiant until 2019. And again, the developers behind this went on to work on Dispatch, and it's come out to rave reviews, and it seems to be on track to sell very, very well, recouping apparently their targeted 3-year, like what they were trying to sell in the first 3 years. That apparently might be done in the first 3 to 4 months. So again, just the most Ubisoft thing I've heard in a long time. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, are you planning to buy Metroid Prime 4? 42% say no, 58% say yes, and we're just in too deep. There's no way. I can't have gone this long. I remember when we were really excited in 2017 because they got the Metroid Prime 4 PNG and the animation, and we're like, this is it. We're going to get it probably in a year or two because Nintendo doesn't announce games that early. Anyway, here we are in 2025. With it now coming out, by the way, at the end of 2025 for their next generation device. I mean, it's also on the Switch one, but like, come on, anyone who has the Switch 2 is like, well, yeah, that's like almost the graphical showcase for the Switch 2, and it's a Switch 1 game. So again, I'm already bought in, basically. I'm here for it. I'm picking it up day one physically because it'll be on the cartridge, and we'll see how this thing turns out. Miles McKenzie or not, I gotta see my way through Metroid Prime 4. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Dre, who says, Nintendo not doing a Switch 2 update for Metroid Prime Remastered was so weird. There's still time for them to do it, and you know, it would actually make sense to even drop that the week of, I guess. Really, Metroid Prime Remastered still looks good. It just needs a resolution bump. If they move the handheld mode up to 1080p and maybe just throw something out there so that it pushes the resolution in dock mode up to 4K, I think the assets and stuff are good enough and it would look great. It does have a slight bit of blur to it in handheld mode. So that's the biggest thing. It's supposed to be a very sharp looking game, and it does on the Switch 1. Like, the best way to play that game still is Switch 1 handheld mode OLED. Like that looks great for Metroid Prime Remastered, but I'm hoping that Nintendo has some kind of free update plan for that, because at the very least, we didn't get Metroid Prime 2 or 3 as of now, and I'm not expecting it, obviously, before Metroid Prime 4, but maybe they'll follow up Metroid Prime 4 with 2 and 3, because that would be a very Nintendo thing to do next year. But drop that free update for Metroid Prime Remastered, clean that thing up, because that also could be one of the better looking games on the Switch 2 as a Switch 1 game. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed last week's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you wanted to hear more of my thoughts around Metroid Prime 4 with some of the previews. I did a bit of a deep dive, actually ahead of the weekend, and I'll leave that in a video right below it. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.